I was halfway through feeding the horses when I saw the dust trail. Not the kind that comes from a neighbor's pickup or some lost tourist. This was coordinated. 3 black SUVs, no plates, dark-tinted windows, rolling slow down my gravel road like they owned it. I called out for Duke, my blue heeler, and he bolted to my side without a sound. The last time I saw that kind of convoy, it was a real police raid on the meth barn across county lines. But this smelled off before the engines even shut. The doors opened in perfect sync, and 6 men stepped out, black polos, cargo pants, shiny tactical belts with metal badges clipped to the front like they'd just ordered a sheriff starter kit off the internet. One of them had a clipboard. One had sunglasses so dark he looked blind. The one in the middle was built like a linebacker and walked with the kind of arrogance that screamed, "I've never been punched in the face by someone who hits back." The man with the clipboard cleared his throat and said, "You are in violation of Article 7, Section 12, regarding non-permitted agricultural expansion." I just stared. "What article?" I asked, wiping sweat from my brow. "This land ain't even zoned under HOA control." He smirked like he knew something I didn't. "The Willow Glen Property Council filed jurisdiction expansion in June. Your ranch falls under new enforcement as of August 1st. It was August 3rd. I nearly laughed. "That council doesn't have authority past Miller Creek," I said. "You boys are 30 acres too deep to be barking orders." Another stepped forward and reached for a taser on his belt. Duke growled low. The man froze. "We're authorized to issue compliance citations and take temporary control if there's resistance." That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a bluff. They weren't here to find me. They were here to take the land. I stood still, not backing up but not escalating either. I've been in standoffs before. Out here ranchers handle their own business until the real law shows up. But this smelled like theater. They wanted to intimidate, maybe provoke. I tilted my hat back and asked, "Who signed the expansion papers?" Clipboard guy glanced down. "A Mr. Howard Pennington." I smirked. "Of course. He's been trying to buy up this ranch for 5 years. Got mad when I wouldn't sell." One of the men in the back stepped toward the barn. I raised my voice. "That's private property. You set 1 foot in there and you'll see what real trespassing charges feel like." Clipboard guy motioned him to stop. "You don't want this to get ugly, sir." "Then turn those tires around," I said. "You've got no cause and no badge. We're deputized by the Willow Glen HOA charter." That made me laugh, genuinely laugh. "That's not a law. That's a newsletter." The tension cracked for a second, but it didn't break. The lead guy took a breath and said, "We'll be back with paperwork." They got in their S and backed out slowly, tires spitting gravel like a warning shot. As soon as they were gone, I walked inside, picked up the phone, and called someone I hadn't spoken to in weeks. "Derek," I said, "your badge still work out here?" His voice on the other end was calm. "Yeah, cousin. Why?" "Fake cops just tried to take my land." There was a pause. "Then I'll be there in 20. I sat on the porch, with Duke at my feet, shotgun across my lap, and a jug of lemonade that I didn't even touch. 20 minutes later, a real sheriff's cruiser rolled up, lights off, slow and steady. Derek stepped out in uniform, sunglasses pushed up on his forehead, and the calm authority of someone who knew he belonged here. He looked at the tire marks, then at me. "What the hell's going on?" I told him everything. He didn't interrupt once, just nodded, took notes, and asked the kind of questions that mattered: who, what, when, not just why. "They're not cops," he said. "They're thugs in polos. And if Pennington's behind it, that's attempted land seizure. They said they'd be back with papers." Derek chuckled. "Good, I'll be waiting." In full uniform, with body cams. Roland, I glanced down the road. "You think they're that dumb?" He looked at me. "If they're bold enough to try it once, they're desperate enough to try again." I exhaled slowly. The sun dipped behind the trees. "This ain't just about my land, is it?" Derek shook his head. "Not anymore." We both knew it. Out here, land meant legacy, and someone was trying to rewrite the rules. But they forgot one thing. We don't scare easy. Not on our land. The next morning, I was up before the sun. Not because I couldn't sleep, though that was true too. I had cameras to install, fences to check, and a cousin in uniform who promised to swing by again before heading to the station. I didn't trust Pennington's people to wait. They struck once. That meant they could strike again. By 6:30, Derek's cruiser eased into the gravel like clockwork. He stepped out, sipping coffee, nodding at the sunrise like it owed him rent. "Got something for you," he said. He handed me a folder thick with printouts. "That's every complaint filed in the past 6 months about unauthorized HOA enforcement activity in the Tri-County area. Guess what name shows up the most?" I didn't even have to open it. "Pennington?" He nodded. "But he's slick, never directly signs anything. Always sends a guy named Braden, or Kurt, or some trust fund idiot with tactical pants and a Bluetooth earpiece." "So what now?" I asked. Derek looked out over the fields. "Now we build a wall. Not a literal one, a legal one. We set up security first." Every angle of the ranch now had motion-activated cams and solar floodlights. Derek even roped in the town's retired judge, who happened to owe him a favor. to come witness the setup and document every improvement. They can't say they weren't warned, he muttered. By noon, I'd already gotten an envelope in the mailbox, no stamp, no postmark, just a plain white envelope shoved in by hand. Inside, a notice claiming imminent lien enforcement for non-compliance with community standards, no HOA logo. Just a badly copied header that looked like it was made on Microsoft Word 2003. Derek saw it and laughed out loud. This is not even legal junk mail. This is fantasy cosplay. But it wasn't funny. It was a message. They were trying to wear me down with paper, pressure, and presence. Around 4 p.m., 2 men in black polos pulled up in a white pickup. They stayed on the edge of the property this time, just outside the gate. One held up a folder and waved like he wanted to talk. I didn't move. I didn't open the gate. I didn't even acknowledge them. Derek, parked at the back edge of the barn, flipped on his cruiser lights and started walking toward them. That was enough. The men stepped back into their truck and peeled off. They're probing, he said. Testing boundaries. So let's give them one, I said. That night, I printed a 4x8 vinyl sign and nailed it to the gate. It read, "This ranch is under legal protection and monitored by county sheriff authorities. Trespassers will be prosecuted." The next morning, someone spray painted over it and read, "Not your land." It was getting personal, and that's when I decided to return the favor. I called a friend of mine in the assessor's office, asked her if she could pull property records on Willow Glen's board members. She hesitated until I told her what they did to me. "You'll have them by morning," she promised. When the file came through, it was a goldmine. Half the board members didn't even live full-time in the area. One guy listed his address as a timeshare. Another was caught on record renting out his primary residence on Airbnb, a clear violation of their own HOA charter. Hypocrisy was bleeding through every page. I printed copies, highlighted contradictions, and started dropping anonymous packages on neighbors' porches. No return address, just facts. And within a week, whispers turned into conversations, conversations into complaints, and complaints into meetings. But still, Pennington stayed quiet. Until the night someone cut my fence. They didn't just snip wire. They ripped out a 30-foot section of barbed steel and left tire tracks across the eastern pasture. Cows wandered near the ditch. Duke barked nonstop. It was no longer passive pressure. It was sabotage. I called Derek. "Bring everything," I said. And this time, I wasn't the only one making calls. By sunrise, 4 vehicles were parked outside my barn. Derek, of course, was first. Then came Chief Marla from the fire department, off-duty but fuming, holding a thermos in one hand and a stack of photos in the other. "They hit our old water reserve tank last month," she told me. Said it was an eyesore. Next was Harold, the county zoning inspector, who pulled up in a rusted-out government truck with a clipboard full of violations, none of them mine. And finally, the last to arrive was Ellie, the president of the agricultural co-op. She stood in silence, arms crossed, staring at the damaged fence like it had bled. "I didn't believe you at first," she admitted. "Pennington's crew threatened to yank our grant funding if we didn't comply." "How many others?" I asked. "More than I'm proud of," she said. So we sat around the picnic table behind my workshop and started connecting the dots. Ellie had names. Derek had files. Harold had zoning maps that made the whole thing look like a land grab dressed up as beautification. The HOAs weren't just enforcing aesthetic rules, they were targeting plots. Big ones, far from town, rich in water access. And guess whose properties lined up across the expansion zone? Pennington's shell companies. 5 of them, all registered in the names of board members, cousins, spouses, or fake LLCs. "He's playing Monopoly," Derek muttered. "But the board is real. The plan was clear now. Use fake citations. Use fake citations. Then buy low, once they were desperate or fined into a corner." The scary part. It was working. "What's the county DA say?" I asked Derek. "She's waiting for one thing, proof of impersonation." "Didn't they flash fake badges? Not on camera? Not yet?" That changed the game. We needed evidence. So we set a trap. Not with bait, but with a deadline. Ellie called an emergency HOA audit meeting scheduled for Sunday at the town rec hall. Public, on the books, and worded just vague enough to sound real. We expected 1 or 2 of them to show up, maybe a scout. But when Sunday came, they arrived in force. 4 men in black, clipboard guy among them. They strolled in like they owned the building. I was already seated in the back corner with a GoPro clipped. Under the table, Derek sat 2 rows ahead in plain clothes, recording audio from his phone. "This meeting is unauthorized," clipboard said loudly. "You're all in breach of community protocol." Someone in the crowd asked, "What community?" Another asked, "Can you show us your badge?" That was when the idiot flashed it. A shiny, oversized metal badge with the words Property Code Officer etched on it, no department seal. No state code, nothing legal about it. He might as well have pulled out a toy sheriff star from a Halloween store. Derek stood up slowly. "Mind if I take a look at that?" Clipboard froze. "Who are you?" "I'm the one whose cousin owns the land you tried to steal," Derek said, pulling out his real badge. "And I'm officially opening an investigation. Chaos. Pure, beautiful chaos." Two of the men tried to walk out. One woman who had remained quiet the whole time stood up and shouted, "I told you this would happen." Her name was Denise. We later found out she was Pennington's assistant. She rolled on him in less than a week, gave names, dates, copies of internal emails that showed everything from false citations to intimidation plans. That was the moment the dam broke. Neighbors filed over 50 complaints in 3 days. The county launched an official probe. And Pennington, he disappeared. Rumors said he went to Nevada, others said he lawyered up. But out here, we didn't wait for trials. We rebuilt, we replaced my fence, reinforced it with cedar and steel. Ellie rewrote the Coupa Charter to prevent HOA-affiliated members from holding office. Derek got a promotion official liaison between county sheriff's department and all local rural zoning boards. And me, I didn't move, I didn't bend, and I damn sure didn't sell. They wanted my land because it meant something. I kept it for the same reason. That wasn't over, not by a long shot. Pennington might have gone underground, but his network didn't collapse overnight. Like roots beneath a weeded field, his influence ran deep, hidden through tax shelters, fake LLCs, and committee proxies that still sat on decision-making boards. That's when we learned the HOA had filed a quiet motion in county court to claim emergency administrative control over 6 parcels of land. Mine was one of them. They argued that uncooperative residents posed a threat to neighborhood integrity and safety. That's when I knew they weren't just trying to find us out, they wanted to legally erase us. But we weren't just playing defense anymore. Derek had the badge, Ellie had the community, and I had Denise, Pennington's former assistant, who turned out to be a walking hard drive of dirty secrets. She had records, audio clips, timestamps, even internal texts. The best one? A group chat between Pennington and board members mocking dumb locals who don't know what's coming. Derek grinned when he saw it. Now that's conspiracy and intent. But we didn't just take it to court. We took it to the people. Ellie organized a Homestead Revival Day on outdoor event where ranchers, farmers, and landowners showcased their properties, shared food, played live music, and handed out flyers about HOA abuse. Over 200 people came. The local news showed up, and so did the cameras. We told our stories publicly, some of them heartbreaking, like the single mom whose herb garden was destroyed by fake enforcers for non-compliant landscaping, or the elderly veteran fined $500 for flying the American flag at a non-designated angle. They made us feel small, but we were becoming something bigger. Community isn't just about fences and lawns. It's about showing up when someone's getting pushed down. It's about calling out the bully in a suit who thinks paperwork makes him powerful, and it worked. Within a week, the court motion was withdrawn. The judge cited ongoing criminal investigation and lack of verified authority as reasons. Pennington's group had been bluffing the legal system, just like they bluffed my driveway, but the damage was real. I lost weeks of sleep, spent thousands reinforcing boundaries, hiring surveyors, documenting every inch of property lines, just in case they tried something slick. But the turning point came when the State Oversight Board released an emergency bulletin. All private enforcement agencies claiming HOA authority must now register, verify personnel, and operate under county supervision or face felony impersonation charges. Derek framed the bulletin and hung it in his office. Policy born from pain, he said, but it'll stop the next guy. Still, I knew they weren't done. They never really go away. Bullies like Pennington don't retreat forever. They regroup, they rebrand. But now, we had something stronger than paperwork. We had each other's backs. For the first time in years, I felt safer, not because I had a shotgun by the door or cameras on the roof, but because I had people who would show up at a moment's notice. Not followers, not fans, neighbors. And in a world where corporations dress up as communities, that kind of real connection is more powerful than any fake badge they could ever flash. That it wasn't over, not by a long shot. Pennington might have gone underground, but his network didn't collapse overnight. Like roots beneath a weeded field, his influence ran deep, hidden through tax shelters, fake LLCs, and committee proxies that still sat on decision-making boards. That's when we learned the HOA had filed a quiet motion in county court to claim emergency administrative control over 6 parcels of land. Mine was one of them. They argued that uncooperative residents posed a threat to neighborhood integrity and safety. That's when I knew they weren't just trying to find us out, they wanted to legally erase us. But we weren't just playing defense anymore. Derek had the badge, Ellie had the community, and I had Denise, Pennington's former assistant, who turned out to be a walking hard drive of dirty secrets. She had records, audio clips, timestamps, even internal texts. The best one? A group chat between Pennington and board members mocking dumb locals who don't know what's coming. Derek grinned when he saw it. Now that's conspiracy and intent. But we didn't just take it to court. We took it to the people. Ellie organized a Homestead Revival Day on outdoor event where ranchers, farmers, and landowners showcased their properties, shared food, played live music, and handed out flyers about HOA abuse. Over 200 people came. The local news showed up, and so did the cameras. we told our stories publicly. Some of them heartbreaking, like the single mom whose herb garden was destroyed by fake enforcers for non-compliant landscaping, or the elderly veteran fined $500 for flying the American flag at a non-designated angle. They made us feel small, but we were becoming something bigger. Community isn't just about fences and lawns. It's about showing up when someone's getting pushed down. It's about calling out the bully in a suit who thinks paperwork makes him powerful, and it worked. Within a week, the court motion was withdrawn. The judge cited ongoing criminal investigation and lack of verified authority as reasons. Pennington's group had been bluffing the legal system, just like they bluffed my driveway, but the damage was real. I lost weeks of sleep, spent thousands reinforcing boundaries, hiring surveyors, documenting every inch of property lines, just in case they tried something slick. But the turning point came when the State Oversight Board released an emergency bulletin. All private enforcement agencies claiming HOA authority must now register, verify personnel, and operate under county supervision or face felony impersonation charges. Derek framed the bulletin and hung it in his office. Policy born from pain, he said, but it'll stop the next guy. Still, I knew they weren't done. They never really go away. Bullies like Pennington don't retreat forever. They regroup, they rebrand. But now, we had something stronger than paperwork. We had each other's backs. For the first time in years, I felt safer not because I had a shotgun by the door or cameras on the roof, but because I had people who would show up at a moment's notice. Not followers, not fans, neighbors. And in a world where corporations dress up as communities, that kind of real connection is more powerful than any fake badge they could ever flash. 2 weeks passed without incident. It was almost enough time to start relaxing again. The horses were calm, Duke had stopped growling at shadows, and my daily calls with Derek had gone back to talking about fishing and football instead of court filings and forged documents. But peace doesn't last long when people like Pennington are involved. It came back in the form of a letter, this time from a private mediator hired by a coalition of neighborhood preservationists. Same font, same fake tone of concern. We wish to resolve our recent misunderstandings amicably and encourage a private sit-down to de-escalate ongoing community tensions. That's how snakes talk when they realize they've been caught mid-slither. I didn't respond, but I forwarded it to Derek, who passed it to the state attorney's office. They're trying to cover their tracks, he said. Play nice now so they look better when indictments drop. Meanwhile, Ellie was spearheading a community petition to ban HOAs from using third-party security agencies without county licensing. She already had 3,000 signatures. Local TV picked it up, and suddenly, our tiny ranching county was front-page news. Reporters called, podcasts requested interviews. One guy even offered to option the whole thing into a Netflix docuseries. Said no to all of it. This wasn't entertainment. This was our land, our lives, our names. We weren't actors in someone else's story, we were the authors now. Still, with the attention came new pressure. Anonymous calls at night. Drone flyovers. Someone even tossed roofing nails into my driveway. I stopped walking outside without my boots on, but I didn't back down. One morning, a legal courier showed up at my gate. This time it was real paper, real ink, real court stamps. Pennington had filed a civil suit against me personally for defamation, loss of reputation, and obstruction of private enterprise. Derek read the paperwork and nearly choked on his coffee. He's suing you for stopping him from stealing your land. Welcome to America, I said. But we didn't panic, we countered. Denise gave a sworn deposition. Ellie gathered testimonials. I had camera footage, documents, and verified maps. And Derek brought the final nail. Audio recordings from the fake enforcement meeting, authenticated by forensic techs. The case unraveled before it even reached the first hearing. Pennington's lawyer withdrew after 3 days. The suit was dropped, but the battle had taken its toll. I hadn't ridden the backfields in weeks. The smell of cut grass and dust used to calm me now and made me tense. Every creak in the barn, every unfamiliar car on the road, sent my nerves spinning. It's not just about you anymore. Derek reminded me one evening, you're the front line. If they get you, they think they can get anyone. I knew he was right, so I held the line. One fence post at a time, one court filing at a time, one neighbor at a time. It was near the end of September, when the tide finally shifted for good. The state attorney's office announced formal charges against 3 Willow Glen HOA board members, including Pennington's top proxy and the so-called security coordinator who flashed the fake badge at the town meeting. News trucks showed up at their homes. Handcuffs clicked. Even local papers that once ran HOA-approved press releases were now using words like fraud, racketeering, and coercion. The narrative had changed. We weren't fringe landowners resisting rules, we were citizens fighting an organized abuse of power. Pennington still hadn't surfaced, but Denise confirmed through her old email access that he was funneling money through a newly formed nonprofit in a neighboring state. He's buying time, she said, moving assets, trying to vanish clean. But that's when the state financial crimes unit got involved. And suddenly, Pennington was no longer just a bully with property ambitions. He was a suspect in a multi-state real estate fraud scheme. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, things were quieter, peaceful even. Ellie's petition had turned into a bill proposal, co-authored by a state representative who used to own land near mine. The Private Enforcement Accountability Act aimed to restrict any non-governmental entity from impersonating law enforcement, directly or indirectly. It passed the committee phase with overwhelming support. Derek called it poetic justice. I called it overdue. One night, Ellie, Derek, Denise, and I sat around a fire pit behind the barn. No papers, no threats, just stories. "Do you ever think it'd go this far?" Ellie asked me. "Never," I said. "But I should have known they wouldn't stop. At my gate, they picked the wrong ranch." Derek muttered. "They picked the wrong damn county," Denise added, raising her glass. We toasted, not to winning but to holding. Holding land. Holding truth, holding each other up. Because that's what real communities do. In the weeks that followed, I got letters, not threats, not lawsuits. Thank yous from strangers, from neighbors I barely knew, from families who'd almost lost their properties but didn't, because we'd held the line. I framed one of them. It read, "I was going to sell, then I saw your story. Now I'm staying, because this land raised us too." That hit harder than any verdict. It reminded me why we fought, why we still would, if needed. Because when you stand your ground, others learn they can too. October brought rain. Not the soft kind, but the steady, soaking kind that makes the land smell like earth and memory. I stood on my porch one morning, watching it fall across the fields, and for the first time in months, there wasn't a knot in my chest. No SUVs creeping up the road, no envelopes. On the gate, just straying horses grazing, and Duke stretched out like a log near the steps, snoring like he'd been guarding a kingdom. That same morning, I got a call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe. "You won't have to worry about him anymore," the voice said. "Pennington was arrested last night, Nevada. Federal charges." I didn't ask who it was. Didn't need to. Word travels fast in small counties. Faster in small wars. By noon, every neighbor within 20 miles had heard. Derek pulled up an hour later with a grin so wide it didn't need explaining. "He's done," he said. "And they're freezing his assets." Denise came by later with coffee and a look of closure in her eyes. "I thought I'd feel more. Something," she said. "But I don't. I just feel clean." That evening, I rode out to the far pasture, the one he wanted most. It overlooked the creek that winds around the hill, the same creek Pennington once tried to block off with a fake erosion permit. The water was high from the rain, moving fast, alive. I stopped beneath the old pecan tree and just breathed. This land, this fight it had changed me. I wasn't just a rancher anymore. I was a reminder that lines drawn on maps mean nothing without people who defend them. I built a bench beneath that tree, nothing fancy, just wood and bolts and a carving that read, "Hold your ground." Not for me. For anyone who comes after. Anyone. Who gets that same knock on their door, that same fake badge in their face. They'll know someone stood here first. We didn't just win. We endured. And when the next fight comes, and it always does, we'll be ready. Not with fear. Not with hate, but with proof. With backbone. Because this isn't just a ranch. It's home. And no one takes home without a war. Home without a war.